Phase 3. Objective: monitor emotional synchronization, measure combat empathy, prepare for retrieval and hybridization sequence. Elior's heart stopped. They weren't trying to help lonely humans find love. They were building something, an army. Humans with alien strength, aliens with human emotion. He scrolled further and saw hundreds of other profiles. Each matched pair was labeled with a code. E9 Elior Lyra 07. He looked over at her. She was asleep but not peaceful. Her fingers twitched slightly like she was fighting some dream. The armor plates on her shoulder glowed faintly, reacting to her pulse. Elior whispered to himself, "They're using you." The next morning, he told her everything. He showed her the files, the project data, the truth. She read the words in silence, her silver eyes scanning each line until her hands began to shake. "I was chosen, not by fate," she said quietly, "but by a machine." Elior tried to speak, but she rose suddenly, the walls vibrating with her movement. "They took my blood, my memories. They called it honor. They said we were making peace between our species." Her voice broke. It was a lie. She turned toward the door, her body tense like a storm. "Lyra, wait!" Elior called. "They will come for me now," she said, her tone cold again. "I have seen this before. Soldiers who learn the truth disappear." Elior stood in front of her. He was small, fragile next to her, but his voice was steady. "You're not going anywhere alone. If they come for you, they'll have to take me too." For a long time, she said nothing. Then slowly she knelt so her eyes met his. "You would risk your life for me?" He nodded. "You cross stars for me. I can cross a hallway." For the first time since she arrived, Lyra smiled. Not a warrior smile, but a soft, human one. That night, the sky above the colony turned red. A corporate cruiser entered orbit. No ID beacon, no signal. The air alarms began to wail. The colonists panicked, running for shelters. Elior and Lyra stood on the platform as the first dropships descended. "They're here for you," Elior said. "No," she answered. "They're here for us." The dropships landed, soldiers pouring out in silver armor. They carried pulse rifles and restraint fields designed to disable Varn warriors. The supervisor from before stepped forward, his voice amplified through a speaker. "Subject Lyra 07, he called. "You are ordered to submit for collection. Your human companion will be relocated for observation." Lyra's eyes glowed like fire. "Observation?" she repeated. "You made me believe I was chosen for love. You will learn what that love has become." She moved like lightning. Her giant form slammed into the ground, cracking metal beneath her feet. Energy bolts flashed through the smoke as she tore the weapons from soldiers' hands. Elior ducked behind a cargo container, his heart pounding as he watched her fight, not like a beast, but like a protector. "Lyra," he shouted. "There are too many." She looked back once. "Then I will be enough," but she wasn't alone. Elior opened the colony's control console, overriding the security systems. The mining drones he repaired every day suddenly came alive, spinning their arms and firing welding lasers at the soldiers. Sparks filled the air. Together, the mechanic and the warrior held the landing pad. When the last dropship lifted off, leaving smoke and wreckage behind, Elior ran to her side. Her armor was cracked, her shoulder bleeding silver light. "They'll send more," she whispered. "Then we'll run," he said. "Where?" "Somewhere they can't reach us." She looked down at him, exhausted but smiling faintly. Humans, always dreaming of escape. He held her hand tiny inside her huge palm. "Dreams are the only things they can't program." Far above them, the corporate cruiser rotated slowly, silent and watching. Inside its control deck, the supervisor's assistant turned to him and said, "Sir, should we pursue?" The supervisor's eyes narrowed. "No, let them run. The experiment is still collecting data." And somewhere deep inside that ship, hundreds of cryopods began to glow, each one containing another human and another alien, waiting to wake. War on the Edge of Stars. The desert outside Delta Outpost 9 stretched endlessly, a red wasteland of dust and cracked stone. Elior's small rover bounced across the dunes, leaving trails of light behind it. Beside him, Lyra sat cramped in the passenger hold, her massive frame barely fitting inside. The cracked plates of her armor shimmered with fading blue light. They had been running for 3 days. The corporate cruiser still circled high above, a silent hunter in the dark. Every night Elior fixed their stolen rover. Every morning Lyra scanned the horizon for drones. They spoke little, but the silence between them felt full, like two hearts beating the same rhythm. On the fourth night, as the cold winds howled outside, Elior finally spoke. "Lyra," he said softly, "we can't keep running forever." She nodded, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "I know, they will follow until one of us stops breathing." He looked at her, thinking, "Then maybe it's time to stop running." Her gaze turned toward him, sharp yet curious. "You would fight them?" He smiled weakly. "I'm human. We fight impossible things every day." That night they made a plan. If the corporation wanted their data, their emotions, their bond, then Elior would give them something else. The truth. He knew every wire, every signal path in the colony's communication towers. If he could break into the main relay, he could broadcast the secret project to every network in the sector. By dawn, the decision was made. They reached the edge of the colony under the cover of a sandstorm. Wind screamed across the towers, lightning flickering inside the red clouds. Lyra moved first, her huge frame bending low to avoid the scanners. Elior followed, his small hands gripping the control device he'd built from spare drone parts. Inside the control center, alarms began to pulse. Corporate soldiers were already there. They had expected him. The supervisor stood in the center of the room, calm as ever, flanked by armored guards. "Mr. Elior," he said, voice smooth like metal. "I warned you. You could have lived a quiet life." Elior raised his chin. "You made me a target the moment you lied." The man smirked. "We didn't lie. We built something greater. You and the creature beside you are proof that emotion can be engineered." Lyra stepped forward, her deep voice echoing. "I am not an experiment." The supervisor's smile faded. "You are property." That single word snapped something inside her. With a roar that shook the walls, she charged. Energy bolts flashed, striking her armor, but she didn't stop. She tore through the line of soldiers, sending metal and sparks flying. Elior dove toward the main console, his fingers flying across the keys. He rerouted the network, unlocking the transmission line. The screen flickered alive, colonies, ships, and satellites all across the sector now linked to his signal. Come on," he whispered, typing faster. Outside the room, explosions thundered. Lyra fought like a storm, each movement graceful and deadly. Her armor smoked, her glowing blood marking the floor like silver fire. The supervisor shouted into his comlink, "Stop the broadcast!" But it was too late. The message went out. Every file, every name, every experiment revealed. Across the stars, millions of beings saw the truth. Humans and aliens alike watched footage of the bond experiments, the manipulation, the suffering. The galaxy began to roar in anger. Inside the control room, Elior fell to his knees, exhausted. "It's done," he breathed. "They know." Lyra turned toward him, wounded but standing tall. "Then we have already won." But victory came with a price. The supervisor pulled a hidden weapon, a pulse detonator. He activated it, a sphere of blue light swelling in his palm. "If I can't control you," he hissed, "then no one will." Elior shouted, "Lyra!" She moved faster than sound, grabbing the detonator and crushing it in her fist. The explosion consumed the room in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the roof was gone, the walls melted. The supervisor lay motionless on the ground. Elior crawled through smoke and dust until he found her. She was kneeling amid the ruins, one hand pressed to her chest. The light in her armor flickered weakly. "You saved us," he said, voice breaking. She smiled faintly, her silver eyes dimming. "You humans always find a way to make chaos into beauty." "No," he whispered, gripping her hand. "Don't say that." Her massive fingers curled gently around his. "Do not grieve, little one. I was made for war. But with you, I learned peace." The storm outside began to fade, the red dust giving way to clear sky. In the distance, colony alarms fell silent. Elior rested his forehead against her hand. "You're not dying. I'll fix you like I fix everything." She gave a weak laugh. "Then I'm safe." And with that, her eyes slowly closed. Above them, across the entire network, her image filled every screen. The giant alien warrior holding a human's hand amid ruins. The galaxy watched in silence, and for the first time in history, humans were not seen as fragile. They were seen as worthy of love, even by those born of war. The unexpected delivery. The morning air on Delta Outpost 9 always smelled like metal dust and recycled oxygen. For Elior, it smelled like another lonely day. He was a mechanic, fixing broken mining drones for a living, surrounded by machines that never spoke and humans who barely noticed him. When his shift ended, he walked back to his small metal room, the hum of ventilation echoing through the narrow halls. He had signed up for the Galactic match, programmed 3 months ago, a service that promised a partner perfectly, designed for your DNA. Elior never expected much. He had no family, no friends, and the colony wasn't the kind of place people looked for love. But that night a message flashed on his terminal. Delivery confirmed. Your companion arrives tomorrow at 0800. Elior stared at the screen, heart pounding. After years of silence, anyone was coming for him. The next morning the colony landing pad was crowded. People whispered, laughing behind their hands. Elior stood alone by the cargo gate, clutching a small flower he'd grown in a hydroponic jar, his gift for his new bride. A sleek transport ship descended, its thrusters kicking up silver dust. The hatch hissed open. At first, Elior thought there had been a mistake. The figure that stepped out was massive, 10 feet tall, clad in black armor that shimmered with alien energy. Her skin was pale blue, patterned with faint glowing lines. Her silver eyes scanned the crowd like a predator measuring prey. When she moved, the ground seemed to tremble. Someone in the crowd gasped. "That's no bride. That's a war beast." But the alien ignored them. She knelt before Elior, her enormous frame lowering with surprising grace. Her voice was deep yet soft, carrying through the wind like music carved from stone. "You are Elior of Earth?" He swallowed. Yes?" She touched her chest with a clenched fist. "I am Lyra of Varn Prime. I am your chosen mate." Laughter broke from the miners watching. The poor guy ordered a wife and got a monster. Elior's cheeks burned. He didn't know whether to run or apologize. "There must be some mistake," he stammered. "I signed up for a compatibility match, not a giant warrior." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "The program chose you. Our genes align at 87% compatibility. You are small, yes, but you are perfect." She extended her hand, a massive armored hand that could crush steel. Hesitantly, Elior placed his own in hers. Her skin was warm, pulse strong, yet gentle pressure held him safe. Something in her eyes softened as she looked down at him. "Your heart beats fast," she said quietly. "Are you afraid of me?" Elior couldn't answer. The crowd was still laughing, but the sound faded in his ears. In that moment he saw not a monster, but a woman who had crossed stars because someone told her he was meant for her. The colony administrator arrived, angry and confused. "This is a military-class species. You can't bring her here without clearance." But Lyra stood tall, voice like thunder. "He is mine. I will not leave him." Elior's heart hammered. Every rule in the colony said she had to be sent back, yet something inside him refused the idea. For years he'd been invisible. Now someone looked at him as if he mattered. That night they sat in his small room. She barely fit inside. Her armor glowed softly in the dark. Elior offered her the flower from his jar. She took it delicately between her huge fingers and smiled for the first time. "I have seen war," Lyra whispered. "I have crushed cities and broken worlds. But no one has ever given me something that grows." Elior felt something shift inside him, fear melting into curiosity. He did not know who she really was or why the program sent her, but he knew one thing. His life was never going to be lonely again. Outside, the colony lights dimmed, and the stars burned bright above them. Somewhere in the distance, a message pinged through the corporate network. Subject E9 bond successful. Proceed to Phase 2. Elior did not see it, but someone else was watching. The giant's heart. The next morning, the colony woke to rumors. People whispered about the human who married a monster. Some said he'd been tricked. Others claimed the alien would eat him in his sleep. Elior tried to ignore them, but their stares followed him wherever he went. Lyra stayed close. She followed him everywhere. The repair yard, the mess hall, even the small marketplace. Wherever she walked, the ground seemed to shake. The miners moved out of her way, pretending not to stare, but fear showed in their eyes. Elior wasn't sure what to do. He was used to being alone, used to silence. Now everywhere he went, there was this towering alien woman shadowing him like a guardian. When he worked, she knelt beside him, watching his every movement with deep curiosity. "Why do you fix these broken machines?" she asked one afternoon. "Because no one else will," he answered, tightening a bolt on a mining drone. They break every day. Someone has to keep them alive. Lyra tilted her head. Alive? Machines do not live. They do for me, Alior said softly. For a moment her glowing eyes studied him in silence. Then she said almost like a whisper, "Perhaps that is why they sent me to you." That night the colony lights dimmed early. The air smelled of metal and fear. Outside his quarters 3 miners waited, men who had laughed at him on the landing pad. They were drunk, angry, and jealous. "Hey, mechanic," one shouted. "Where's your space giant?" "She polishing your boots?" Alior sighed, trying to walk past them, but the biggest miner shoved him hard. "You brought a danger to our home, freak. You think she belongs here?" Before Alior could speak, a shadow fell across them. Lyra stepped out from the dark corridor, eyes glowing like molten silver. She didn't raise her weapon. She didn't need to. Her voice was low and calm. "Touch him again, and I will break the bones that make your voice." The miners froze. One laughed nervously. "It's just a joke." Lyra stepped closer, her towering figure filling the hallway. "Then laugh elsewhere." They ran. The sound of their boots faded into the metal tunnels. Alior looked up at her, both frightened and grateful. "You didn't have to scare them," he said quietly. She knelt again, her face softening. "On my world, a bondmate must be protected at all costs. I failed once before. I will not fail again," he frowned. "You were bonded before?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I was a soldier in the Varn Wars. I was given a mate by command, a scientist, small and kind. He died in battle when I was not there to guard him." Ilior's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "I do not need sorrow. I need purpose. You give me that again." The words hit him harder than he expected. For years he thought no one could see him. Now this giant woman looked at him as if he was the center of her universe. The next day, things grew worse in the colony. The corporate supervisor arrived from orbit, a cold man in a silver suit. He walked straight into Elior's workshop with soldiers behind him. "Mr. Elior," the supervisor said, "you are in violation of colony safety protocols. The being registered as your match is a class-tier warrior, not authorized for residential zones." Elior's hands tightened. "It wasn't my choice. The system sent her." "That system belongs to us," the man said coldly. "Return her to orbit or we'll confiscate her." Lyra stepped between them, towering over the soldiers. "Confiscate?" She growled. "I am not property." The soldiers raised their weapons. The air trembled. Elior's voice cracked. "Wait. Stop, she's not dangerous." For a moment, no one moved. Then the supervisor smiled thinly. "You'll regret this loyalty, human." He turned and left, the soldiers following him. When they were alone, Lyra looked at Elior. "You protect me with words. I protect you with strength. We are equal." He nodded slowly. "I think that's how it should be." Later, as the night grew silent, Elior sat by the window, watching the faint glow of Lyra's armor as she slept on the floor, too large for any human bed. He thought about her stories, about the wars she fought, the people she lost. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was no random mistake. No program would send a warrior like her to a lonely mechanic. Something bigger was happening. Something that had started long before she arrived. As he drifted into uneasy sleep, his terminal blinked again. Another hidden message. Subject Lyra 07 displaying protective attachment beyond parameters. Proceed to Phase 3. Prepare retrieval. And far above the colony, in the dark silence of orbit, a ship turned its sensors toward them. The experiment revealed. 3 days passed since the visit from the corporate supervisor. The colony pretended nothing had happened, but Elior felt the weight of eyes everywhere he went. The workers stopped talking when he entered a room, and the security drones now scanned Lyra every time she moved through the corridors. Lyra didn't seem afraid. She carried herself with the calm strength of a soldier. But Elior could see the tension in her movements. She was watching everything, every drone, every camera. She knew they were being watched. That night, while she rested beside the window, Elior sat at his old console, fingers moving across the cracked screen. He wasn't a hacker, but years of repairing broken systems had taught him how to look beneath the surface. The Galactic Match Program database was supposed to be protected by corporate firewalls, but he found a hidden path left open, maybe by accident, maybe on purpose. He followed it. Lines of alien code glowed faintly across the screen. After an hour of decoding, a message appeared. Project Harmony Human-Varn Integration Trial. The Bride and the Mechanic. The next sunrise on Delta Outpost 9 was unlike any before. The storm clouds were gone, and for the first time, sunlight broke through the dust. The red sands glowed golden. The people who had once whispered about the human and his monster bride now gathered silently outside the ruins of the control tower. Elior knelt beside Lyra's still form, his hands covered in silver dust. Her armor was cracked, her breathing faint, but her heart still pulsed beneath the metal, slow, heavy, alive. He had not slept. For hours he worked with trembling hands, using every tool and piece of scrap he could find. He patched her armor with melted drone plates, reconnected power lines, and used his own blood cells in the bioregenerator. He didn't know if any of it would work. When her eyes finally flickered open, faint silver light shining again, he almost couldn't breathe. "Lyra?" he whispered. Her voice came out low, weak, but steady. "Still here." He smiled, tears burning his eyes. "I told you. I fix everything." She looked at him quietly, then said, "You are more stubborn than any soldier I have met." He laughed softly. "And you're the only bride in the galaxy who needs an entire power cell just to wake up." News of what they had done spread across every colony. The broadcast had shaken the whole sector. Dozens of corporations and councils were now under investigation. The galaxy had learned about Project Harmony, how love and loyalty had been twisted into weapons, but what caught everyone's attention wasn't the data. It was the image. The giant alien woman, broken yet defiant, and the tiny human holding her hand amid the wreckage. That image traveled faster than light. To the humans of Earth, it became a symbol of courage. To the alien worlds, it became a question. What if love was stronger than power? Even the Varn Empire, Lyra's home, sent envoys to the colony. They wanted her back, the lost warrior who had become a legend. When their ship arrived, Lyra stood outside the settlement with Elior at her side. The Varn commander, tall and stern, bowed deeply before her. "Lyra of Varn Prime, you are welcome home. Your name is sung now in every hall." She looked down at Elior and then back at the commander. "My home is not where I was born," she said softly. "It is where I was found." The commander blinked. "You would stay among humans?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, here I learned that strength without kindness is only noise. Here a small man taught me what it means to protect life, not destroy it." The commander said nothing more. He bowed again, this time lower. "Then the Empire will honor your choice." Weeks passed. The colony slowly rebuilt. Elior's name became known across human settlements. Some called him the mechanic who freed the stars. Others simply called him the husband of the giant. He didn't care for the titles. All he cared about was fixing what was broken. Drones, towers, and sometimes hearts. Lyra helped too. Her massive hands could lift collapsed structures and move cargo ships like toys. Children weren't afraid of her anymore. They followed her laughing, climbing on her arms as she pretended to be a walking mountain. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Elior sat on the roof of their rebuilt workshop. Lyra sat beside him, her huge shadow stretching across the sand. He looked up at her. "Do you ever miss your world?" She shook her head slowly. "Sometimes. But then I remember. On my world, we are taught to fear weakness. Here you showed me it is the only way to understand strength." He smiled. "You sound more human every day." She looked down at him, her eyes glowing softly. "And you, Elior of Earth, sound more like a warrior than you think." They sat in silence for a while, watching meteors streak across the sky. The stars above shimmered like glass. Countless worlds, countless hearts, all connected by something greater than science or war. Then she said quietly, "When they told me I would be bonded to a human, I felt shame. I thought it was punishment. But now I see the universe made no mistake." He turned to her. "Neither do I." Her hand moved gently, lifting him into her palm, setting him close to her heart. "Small one," she said softly, "you are proof that humanity is not weak. You build, you repair, you hope, and hope is the most dangerous weapon in any galaxy." He smiled, resting against her chest as her heartbeat echoed like thunder. "Then let's keep using it." Above them, the stars continued to burn. And in every corner of space, stories began to spread. About a human mechanic and his giant alien bride who defied a system built on control. About love that refused to be engineered. About two hearts that rewrote the laws of fear. They called it the bond of the mechanic and the warrior. And across countless worlds, whenever a human and alien stood side by side, someone would whisper, Remember Lyra and Elior, the first ones who proved that humanity was never fragile, only untested. The end.